So on October 13th, last week, we hosted an informational meeting to discuss how the two maps, the Charlotte Future 2040 policy map and the Charlotte Streets map, will inform future growth, development, and mobility around the city of Charlotte. If you didn't get a chance to watch that, we're going to drop a link to that in the chat, and you can watch it on your own. But in today's meeting, we'll be providing a brief overview of what was covered in that meeting, including the purpose of the policy map and the Charlotte Streets map, and how the two maps relate to one another. The majority of today's meeting, however, it's going to be a community conversation around the policy map. So we'll take a look at how the policy map recommendations were developed within this geography. And then we want to talk about how we might need to revise our citywide mapping approach to make it more accurate and better aligned with the comprehensive plan. So we're going to just review some basic information about the plan, about the planning efforts. So what is the purpose of the Charlotte Future 2040 policy map and the Charlotte Streets map? The purpose of these two maps is to help implement the vision of the Charlotte Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan, which is the guiding document for our city's growth and development over the next 20 years, which was just adopted back in June by City Council. And there are now several major initiatives underway to help put that plan into action. The Charlotte Future 2040 policy map will identify appropriate locations for future development within our neighborhoods. The Charlotte Streets map will define the multimodal vision for Charlotte's streets to support mobility between the places where we live, work, and play. And the Unified Development Ordinance will consolidate and update the city's land development regulations so future development is aligned with the vision of the comprehensive plan. A draft of the Unified Development Ordinance, or UDO, was released on October 7th, and you can find more information about this initiative at cltgov.me/CLT Future, and I think we're going to drop that link in the chat as well. The Charlotte Future 2040 policy map and the Charlotte Streets map will both help implement the vision for the Charlotte Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan, and they'll accomplish this by informing how our built environment evolves and changes over time. The built environment includes both land use and transportation related characteristics, so each map provides supporting information about the places that we want to create. The policy map will inform the type of development that's appropriate to occur in specific geographies throughout the community. And again, the Future 2040 policy map will inform the types of land uses and building form that's appropriate throughout the community. The Charlotte Streets map will define the future cross section for arterial streets, including the future curb line location and streetscape requirements. So with an understanding that both maps are intended to help implement the vision of the comprehensive plan, and that they'll both help inform the city's built environment over time, we're going to take a closer look at the Charlotte Streets map and policy map. Before going into the details of the map itself, it's helpful to briefly consider what a street actually is. A street looks, feels, and functions the way it does based on all of the pieces that are in between the building fronts, built from building front to building front. And all of the components are important. The policy map deals with land uses and the buildings along the street, and the street map focuses on the portion of that space that provides mobility. You can see in this diagram how the various components of the street work together to serve all users. From the center space that provides safe crossings for pedestrians and motorists, to the bike facility that allows people to get to land uses along the street, to the sidewalk that is wide enough for people to walk comfortably. All of these components create the streets that allow people to move around safely. So now that we've looked at what a street is, we're going to take a look at the streets map. So it's the mapped vision of our multimodal street network. It's based on council adopted policies that have been developed and refined over the last several years. It shows the recommended cross-section for all of Charlotte's arterial streets and will support the UDO to help ensure that we're providing multimodal streets as we grow and develop. Note that this is a citywide streets map. The streets around the blue line were mapped and adopted in 2019, and that map remains in place, but will ultimately be folded into the citywide map as shown here. And you can go online and review and provide comments on this map along with the policy map through November 14th. And I think we're going to drop that link in the chat as well. That's really the best way to go in there and really like zoom into certain areas to see what you, to make your comments. When you click on our arterial street, there will be a pop-up box that includes information about the street cross section so that you can review. And then you can make a comment on the streets map by clicking the green icon. Then it'll bring up a box, and you can get instructions for this by watching the full demonstration video available at cltgov.me/CLT You can also click on the map's splash page to go to the website for more information, and including an informational video. So moving on to the Charlotte Future 2040 policy map. This is a companion to the Charlotte Future 2040 comprehensive plan, and it'll translate the plan's place-based policies to specific geographies in the community. Place-based policies are those that provide guidance for where and how development should occur. For example, the plan recommends providing higher density housing along major thoroughfares and transit lines, so we align future density with our transportation infrastructure. This mapping effort will identify where there are opportunities to realize that goal throughout the community. When adopted, the Charlotte Future 2040 policy map will replace the city's current policy map called the Future Land Use Map. The policy map provides a comprehensive and citywide direction for how Charlotte will balance both the needs and opportunities that come with future growth. For example, the map will ensure our city can accommodate its projected growth while also protecting features that are important to residents, such as the natural environment and established neighborhoods. The mapping effort will also ensure that we align future growth with infrastructure capacity so we grow smartly and maximize our resources. And finally, the 2040 policy map citywide direction means that we can ensure historically underserved areas are guaranteed better access in the future, and that Charlotte becomes a more equitable city. Since the objective of this mapping effort is to evaluate and balance citywide needs and opportunities, the policy map will not be providing parcel specific or block by block analysis that has historically occurred during the small area planning process. The policy map was developed using a new tool called place types and followed a 3-step process. The place types are a new classification system to organize patterns of development, but they are not zoning districts. They are more complete and holistic than the city's current classification system called future land use. Future land use only provides guidance for the type of development permitted on a property, either residential, commercial, or institutional. Occasionally, future land use can provide guidance on the level of density permitted. In comparison, place types provides guidance for the mix and the proportions of land use, building form and design, mobility, and open space. The place types tool was vetted by the community during the development of the comprehensive plan. Stakeholders provided input on the types of places right for Charlotte, as well as the guidance for each place type. The 2040 policy map will now apply those place types vetted during the plan development to specific geographies throughout the community. Using the new place types tool, the draft policy map was developed following 3 steps. The first step was to translate the existing development on the ground with the new place type tool. This step was completed just to illustrate how the place types are intended to be applied at a half block or block level, and it's for reference only. And this step did not inform the policy map. The second step was to translate the city's adopted area plans into place types. This step illustrates how Charlotte would grow if we did nothing different and did not map the comprehensive plan policies. The third step built upon the adopted policies map and revised the map to reflect the comprehensive plan policies. By building off of the adopted policy map, the process didn't erase previous planning efforts that are still valuable to our community. Instead, it respects what's working for our community and only revises the shortcomings that fail to address the city's current and future needs. So as you can see here, we have this is our place types palette. So there's 10 place types: parks and preserves, neighborhood one, which is more lower density housing, so single family, single family residential, as well as duplexes and triplexes. Neighborhood 2 is going to be a slightly more intense residential, so multifamily residential. There's apartments, condominiums, and some neighborhood services. We have commercial, which is more auto-oriented office and retail uses. Campuses are places for office or healthcare or religious institutions. Then we have innovation mixed use, which is a lower intensity industrial and employment center. Then we have manufacturing and logistics, which is more manufacturing, waste processing, power generation, et cetera. And then we have our centers. So we have neighborhood center, which is a smaller, more mixed use neighborhood center that serves the immediate area. Then community activity centers are a little bit bigger than neighborhood centers and serve the community more. And then regional is going to be more walkable, mixed use places. Typically, you think of Uptown as one of those places. And again, here we have the description again. So there were several data inputs used in each of the 3 mapping steps. We'll focus on the inputs for the adopted policies and the Charlotte Future 2040 policy map, since those 2 steps informed today's draft map. The major inputs for the adopted policies map include future land use recommendations from area plans adopted since 2010. And those plans account for approximately 27% of the land area in Charlotte. For the remaining portions of the city, the adopted policy map was informed by the zoning or existing entitlements to a property, or in instances where the existing zoning district did not clearly translate to one place type, market support analysis was used to identify what was the most realistic future use of that property. And as mentioned, the draft policy map built upon the adopted policies map by revising the map to reflect the new direction of the comprehensive plan. The major inputs used to revise the second map and produce a draft map include the equitable growth framework and preservation policies. And then the draft recommendations were checked against several other data sources, such as growth projections, environmental and infrastructure capacity, and market realities. So with that, we'd like to walk through how the process played out in the east, middle, and outer community area. So again, the phase 2 community conversations are organized around 15 community planning areas throughout the city. So today we're looking at the east, middle, and outer. It's the area generally bounded by Hickory Grove Road, the Charlotte Mint Hill City Limit, Sardis Road, and Eastway. As mentioned, the mapping approach began translating what's on the ground today and what future place types would look like without the comprehensive plan. So here is what's on the ground today. So this is based on existing land use data and development patterns. And then the second step in the mapping approach was to take translate the city's adopted policies and existing entitlements into place types. So that's what you see on the screen here. And you can see the percentage change on the right legend. This translation was based on several inputs. So future land use recommendations for areas, for area plans since 2010, like as I mentioned, and zoning in the area. In some instances, there wasn't a clear translation between existing zoning and future place types. So like I said, we determined which place type assignment was best based on a market perspective. And so this map reflects how Charlotte would grow and change if we didn't implement any of the recommendations from the Charlotte Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan. So now I'm going to go and dig into the policy map. So we're going to talk through how the place types were revised to better align with the vision of the community and the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan includes policies to preserve existing neighborhood 1, parks and preserves, and manufacturing and logistics. So you can see where we identified those place types and maps them here. And from here, it looks like neighborhood 1 went down just a little bit, so did manufacturing and logistics, and then the parks and preserve spaces went up 85%. So before we start talking about the potential changes to the current approach, we'd like to ask you some questions about what you've seen reflected so far in the draft. We think a number of these steps described are accomplishing the goals of the comp plan, and we want to hear whether or not you agree. So the first question that we're going to ask, there's going to be a poll popping up soon, and we're going to see if you agree or disagree. So I know this is a lot of information, but bear with us. So the mapping step to preserve neighborhood 1 and parks and preserves aligns with the Charlotte Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan's direction to protect community assets. So you can let us know if you agree with the decision to preserve neighborhood 1 and parks and preserves.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I don't even know how to answer this. I mean, it's just, there's a small group of us here. So I don't know. I just don't know. How do I even know to answer this?
Well, so the goal that we're trying to do here is to preserve neighborhood 1, parks and preserves, and manufacturing and logistics.
Yeah.
So, and it might make sense as we continue and show the full mapping process.
Yeah. Yeah. Continue on, and I hope everybody else participates. I just don't even think I can answer. I can't answer that question. So let's keep going. But just so you know, I'm not trying to be stubborn. I just don't understand how to even answer that.
No worries. Yeah, well, I'll keep going, and then if you have any comments after, we can go back to that, and or you can drop comments in the chat. Well, yeah, but I'll keep going forward.
Thank you.
Okay. So next, we're going to look at mapping access to housing opportunity policies. So let me go in here. So place types assignments were made to improve equitable growth framework measures. And so we looked at different opportunities to do that. This included, the list included sensitive environmental features, development status, proximity to transit, and proximity to other place types assignments or land suitability.
All right, I don't think we can see your next slide, maybe. I think we can just see like
you can't? Okay.
Yeah, this one, yeah.
There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So the comprehensive plan calls for creating a more equitable future for all Charlotteans, which means we need to ensure that future growth and development benefits everyone. So in order to measure who does and doesn't currently benefit from past development, the comprehensive plan included the equitable growth framework, which assessed which areas have low access to housing diversity, jobs, goods and services, and were impacted by environmental justice issues. So on this map, areas outside of the black diagonal hatches were shown to have lacking access to housing diversity, meaning you can't easily find a variety of housing types in this area. The bullet points on the page are the metrics that were used to understand where access to housing is currently lacking. The step in the mapping approach was focused on making place type recommendations that would better provide opportunity to housing unit diversity. The items that aren't underlined can happen within any neighborhood, and therefore other tools outside of place types will be explored to try to address these gaps. And those other tools may include programming, design solutions, and infrastructure projects. So the next thing we're going to look at is neighborhood 2. So the neighborhood 2, it looked like that it increased 9%. So neighborhood 2 is a place type tool that helps provide more housing opportunities through housing unit diversity. Here you can see in orange where some of that neighborhood 2 was mapped, and it looks like it's some along Central and Albemarle, along Monroe. And I'll also mention, we know that these maps are hard to read on a PowerPoint or on a Zoom call. But again, the best place to really dig into the maps is going to be on our online mapping tool, because then you can look more street by street to where you're interested in, and leave your comment there. I'll also mention that we're going to have hard copies at libraries and YMCA's, we'll have surveys included there too. But again, the best way to do it is online through the comment app. So in some areas, neighborhood 2 was already mapped based on adopted policies, and the areas highlighted in blue. So can you guys see my mouse? You can, okay. So yeah, here and some here and here. The areas highlighted in blue show where neighborhood 2 was recommended as part of this step. And here you can see all of those first 4 place types on the policy map. So neighborhood 1, manufacturing and logistics, parks and preserves, and neighborhood 2. So we wanted to ask you what you thought about those mapping steps that I just went through. Before we start talking about potential changes to the current approach, we'd like to ask you this question so that you can let us know what you think so far. So this question is mapping more neighborhood 2 in areas with low access to housing and with low access to housing opportunity a good approach to increasing housing diversity in the future? So do you agree with the statement that more neighborhood 2 is one way to provide for more housing opportunities?
This is Molly. I'm also, if you don't know how to answer again, like that's totally fine too.
Yeah.
No worries at all.
Yeah. And so far, it looks like we have one disagree. And if anyone wants to speak up, and if you can either drop a comment in the chat box or unmute and let us know. We're taking all feedback as our approach, so that we can make for our approaches, so that we can make sure that we address everyone's issues. So this was our first attempt at this initiative based on the process that we have in place. And so if there's ways that you think that we can improve our process, we are very open to hearing your thoughts. Okay, so I'll move on from this one, but if anyone has any thoughts, feel free to speak up or drop a comment in the chat. So next we'll look at mapping access to employment opportunities based on, which is the second component of the equitable growth framework. So on this map, areas outside of the black diagonal hatches are lacking existing access to employment opportunities. And the bullet points on this page are the metrics that were used to understand where the access currently is lacking. The place type mapping aims to provide opportunity for employment within a commute shed, so within 1.5 miles of every neighborhood, but not within every neighborhood. The items that aren't underlined can happen within any employment area, and therefore other tools outside of place types will be explored to address these gaps. So campus and the campus and innovation mixed use place types are two place types that can help provide more employment opportunities within close proximity to neighborhoods. Here you can see the teal place type, or I'm sorry, the teal and the light pink, where those areas were mapped. In some areas, these place types were already mapped based on adopted policies. And the areas highlighted in blue show the additional areas where these place types were recommended as part of this step in the mapping effort. So a few you can see right here, here, and campus you can see went down. And here is the map with all of the place types mentioned so far. So we have another question coming up. So we'll get into the additional place types shortly, but we want to see what you think about those mentioned so far. Is mapping campus and innovation mixed use in areas with low access to jobs a good approach to increasing job access in the future? If you want to take a moment to think about that and let us know. So we have one agree. And so if you guys have any additional comments on this question, feel free to drop them in the chat, or you can unmute and speak up. So I'll move on. Next, we're going to look at access to essential amenities, goods and services, and goods and services, which is the third component of the equitable growth framework. So on this map, the areas outside of the black diagonal hatches are lacking existing access to essential amenities, goods, and services. The bullet points on this page are the metrics that were used to understand where that access is lacking, and the underlying metrics were specifically identified as items place type mapping could help address. The items that aren't addressed, the items that aren't underlined can be provided in any place type, and therefore aren't the tools, and therefore other tools outside of place types will be explored to address those gaps. So if you look here to the changes from the adopted policies map, it looks like commercial went down 31%, neighborhood center went up 78%, and community activity center went up 74%. So commercial activity centers are place types that can help provide more access to amenities. Here you can see in red, pink, blue, and navy where these 4 place types were mapped. In some areas, these place types were already mapped based on adopted policies, and the areas, the areas shown in blue outside show those additional areas that were mapped. And with that, this shows the complete 2040 policy map with all of the place types included and the changes from the adopted policies map. And so before we start talking about the overall approach and potential changes to our current approach, we want to ask this last question: is mapping activity centers in areas with low access to goods and services a good approach to increasing access to goods and services in the future? You can let us know if you agree or disagree. All right, so we have 1 neutral and then 1 agree. Again, if you want to elaborate or speak up more on your thoughts on that, feel free to do that. So the last component of the equitable growth framework is environmental justice. So it's one more we're going to look at. So on this map, the areas outside of the black diagonal hatches are impacted by environmental justice issues. The bullet points on this page are the metrics that were used to understand where environmental justice is currently lacking. So no more intense place types were, no more intense place types were mapped in any floodplain areas. And the place type mapping effort also used buffering and transitions to reduce the proximity between neighborhoods and heavy industrial uses or major transportation infrastructure. Opportunities to provide buffering or transitions are limited, based on existing development. So other tools outside of place types may need to be used to address some of those inequities. And I'm sorry, we have one last question here before we start talking about the current approach. How important is it to explore additional tools to further mitigate environmental justice impacts during the community area planning process? So after the policy map is adopted later next year, the future steps in implementation include future community area planning in different geographies throughout Charlotte. And so this is part of that question. Okay, so we have 2 people that agreed that it's very important. So next, we're going to highlight what the above mentioned place type recommendations mean for the area in terms of attracting new housing units and future jobs, and how it compares to the city. So in terms of housing units, the place type recommendations within this geography will allow for approximately 13,370 additional households by 2040. And so this number of housing units is approximately 9% of all growth projected for citywide. And then in terms of jobs, the place type recommendations within this geography will allow for approximately 4,300 jobs. And this accounts for approximately 2% of all new jobs projected for the city by 2040.
Maria, do you know
Yes.
for housing and maybe for jobs, but especially housing,
Mhm.
does that increased percentage keep up with anticipated growth? How does it relate to anticipated growth?
Yes, so this anticipates the projected growth, is from what I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. And so if there's no other questions at the moment, I can we'd like to try to get some feedback on our draft mapping approach. So the objective of this part of the meeting is to collect feedback on the approach that we've used so far, as well as potential revisions to the approach. So there are two types of feedback that we can use to revise our citywide mapping approach. We can identify additional steps to add to the mapping approach, which would help better align the final map with the policy map. And then we can discuss potential adjustments to the current mapping steps that would help improve the accuracy of the map. What this process cannot do is incorporate parcel specific revisions that don't inform an overall strategic change to the citywide mapping approach. Again, this is a citywide mapping effort that must balance future needs and opportunities.
Maria, if I can, so my interest in this meeting relates to my advocacy work. I'm with Mora, the
Okay.
Monroe area.
Yeah.
And of course, we're seeing the Silver Line coming down our road. So my focus for this meeting, is pretty narrow, and that's along Monroe Road.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess my question is, when we've had conversations with CATS regarding Silver Line, the alignment, the TOD development,
Mm-hmm.
it was my understanding, or perhaps just wish, that the work that you are doing aligns with the work that they are doing.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it does. I can't see that.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So the approaches that we have to date, I don't believe include current other community planning efforts that are going on at the moment. But there's a few other citywide planning efforts that are going on at the same time, including some like Albemarle Road playbook study, Sugar Creek, Silver Line. And so I think we're still figuring out how we're going to take that feedback and incorporate it into here. But yeah, we're aware that those other planning efforts have feedback, and that they've been, in communication with the community for a long time. And so we're going to be taking that in as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can also follow up to see if what specific conversations we had so far in regards to this, but I can make sure we get that info to you.
Yeah, and it was driven home to me by the fact that CATS scheduled a Silver Line meeting, at 5:30 tonight. And, it just kind of highlighted that the two groups are not talking to each other. And that was a bit disheartening, to be honest.
Yeah, I can understand your frustration. But we'll definitely take that into account and make sure we consider that. There's currently a lot of citywide projects going on at the moment. And so we want to make sure that we're aligned with all of them and making sure we're considering all of the voices that have gone into all of these efforts for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. So I think we have a few more questions that we want to ask, but if anyone has any comments that they want to add to Kathy's comments, or just feel free to unmute yourself and speak up, or again, drop it in the chat. So we recognize that the current mapping approach is just a starting point, and that we may need to add some additional steps to better align the map with the comprehensive plan. So we want to share a few suggestions for additional steps with you all and see whether or not you agree with the suggestions. The additional steps that we've heard from our interdepartmental stakeholders are related to 3 of the 10 place types. So first, we're going to take a look at the manufacturing and logistics place types. We've heard from our partners in economic development that some of the existing manufacturing and logistics sites in our city, especially those close to uptown, might be better suited for other uses due to the changing nature of the manufacturing industry. So our question to you all is it more important to preserve existing manufacturing and logistics sites, or to consider where repurposing these may be better, repurposing these may better serve other community needs in the future?
And I think Kathy and maybe Joanna, it's just y'all too. So it would be helpful if I don't know, I mean, Kathy, if you don't, you already answered, or I'm assuming that was you. Great. Thanks. Because it helps us keep track of our, even though it's just you, it helps us with our data tracking, to have it like officially answered. So thanks.
Joanna Quinn, the Joanna Quinn from a city that I know.
It is. How are you, Kathy?
I'm
just lurking in the background.
So apparently I'm on with all city people.
I thought there was more people on here. I guess they dropped off.
Yeah, there were.
It's a lot of information to take in. So
it is, but I don't know why we promoted this meeting. I'm really bumfuzzled as to why there aren't more people on this. Do you have any idea?
Thank you so much for helping promote. No, we're not sure. We've tried our best to promote as much as possible. I don't know if we're not sure if it's just that there's so many efforts going on, or people are just like meeting fatigued out, or we're not sure. We had a meeting this afternoon on this same geography, and there was a little more participation. I mean, but the previous ones from last week, they were a little less well attended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
geography that Marie, you said it was like 15 people though, like more at noon.
Yeah, and I think I think maybe like 5 of those were also city staff. So I think it was probably under 10, maybe. Yeah.
I jumped over at 6 o'clock from the CATS meeting that started at 5:30, and they had about 35 people on there.
Okay.
But this is a tough subject. Like, no,
it really is. Yeah.
Greek, you're trying to make it as easy to understand as possible, but
we're glad you think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that you're doing your very best, but it's just, a dreadful.
Yeah. And it's very, it's not very tactical, like, so that you can't, it's difficult for people to see, I guess, as opposed to like transit. It's more, they get that because they see it. So yeah, it's kind of a difficult subject.
Especially if you're living right near it, it really does impact you, where this topic right now, it doesn't. It's kind of a broad, and it's hard as a citizen to weigh in with any confidence at what you're saying. I don't know. I have no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I appreciate what you all are doing, and sorry that my fellow citizens aren't joining me here.
Well, we appreciate you caring and joining us. So thank you. There's a couple, I think there's a couple more questions here. I can go through them and we can just talk about it. And then I can also jump on them onto the map. Have you had a chance to look at our online map?
I briefly,
Okay.
yeah, I have not, I have intended all week to see the recording
No worries.
from last week and just haven't been able to.
No worries. After this, I can just actually hop onto that. That might be easier than what we were going to do, which was do some annotating on our slide, but we can just jump right into the map, especially since it's just you. But
Just
so then
zero in on Monroe Road and we can talk about that.
that sounds good. So the next question that we have in our slides is there are a lot of large single family lots located along major transportation corridors in the city. These sites could evolve to neighborhood 2 to provide more housing options in the future. So is it more important to preserve existing single family lots or provide more housing along those major thoroughfares?
Well, I'm speaking for myself and I hope for most of the folks the Mora folks. We know more density is better and are supporting that.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And then the last one we have is a lot of the existing commercial development throughout Charlotte doesn't align with the comprehensive plan's vision for walkable and integrated communities. So how important is it that commercial places evolve into neighborhood activity centers?
So how important that commercial places?
So the
help me out here.
Yeah. So the commercial place types are going to be again, retail, office areas, and services, but more auto oriented. Where the neighborhood activity centers or commercial activity centers, they'll be more like ped, bike, more neighborhood level rather than auto oriented.
So if I am trying to get more ped oriented than auto oriented, I would say very unimportant. Is that?
I think you would say very important. So I think you would agree that commercial places should evolve into neighborhood activity centers, especially along Monroe Road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Evolve into and not.
Evolve into.
Okay. I was interpreting that as joining. So.
Okay.
Yes, I'm with you now.
Mm-hmm. And so let's see, the next part is again, this is where we're going to talk about specific concerns you have with the map or our approach. So this was going to, I can exit this and then I will just pull up. We can either look at it this way and you can annotate it, or again, I can zoom in specifically to the area that you want to talk about.
Yeah, let's look at Monroe Road and
that sounds good.
And normally with the annotations, we would take a screenshot and save that later, but I'm taking notes about everything we're talking about. So we'll still get that information down, and don't worry about not participating in the part we had planned. All your notes will still be recorded and kept.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fran. Okay, let me see how I stop sharing. Stop share. Okay, and now I'm going to pull up. Okay, can you guys see this?
Not yet.
We're about to.
Okay. Let me know when it shows up.
Yeah, you might need to wait a little bit, and if it doesn't pop up, you might just need to stop sharing and then share again.
Thanks, Ren. Let me try again. Is it showing up now?
No, I don't know.
I'm not sure what's going on. Let me try
Do
one
you
more
want?
time. Do you want to try,
I-
Molly?
Yeah, let me go.
Or-
Let me see if I can find the comment map. Let's see if it'll just come up.
I'll try one more time.
There we go. Okay, let me try.
Okay.
Here we go. Okay, is it working?
Yes, it is.
Oh, yay. Okay, good. So I know here, I'm going to turn off some of these layers if that's okay, like the streets one, so we can just look at the place types. But it does come with, you can comment on the streets map or on the policy map. But I know you said Monroe Road, which is around, oh, it's right here, right?
It parallels Independence to, it's the parallel road to the left of Independence Boulevard.
Yes. Okay, so I have it right here. I don't know if you wanted to look at a specific area or where you wanted me to start.
Yeah, so let's start up in Oakhurst.
Okay. Oakhurst. So here's Chantilly. I gotta find. Oh, I think it's over here,
It's
isn't it?
between Sharon Amity and Eastway, Wendover.
Here, let me just.
Yeah, that's Meridian Place. Keep going north.
Oh, keep going.
Nope, the other way.
The north. Okay.
Okay, so you are there.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh
so
yeah,
the
here's North Shore.
pink is Oakhurst.
Yeah, so you see the pink is going to be Neighborhood Activity Center.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that's,
But let me ask you this. This doesn't take into consideration the Silver Line, or does it?
I don't so no, I don't believe it's taken into account any of the comments received from the Silver Line. But it does anticipate the growth and from the Silver Line, I believe.
Yeah, that was one of the.
I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Mhm.
Yeah, you're right. We haven't taken into account, I think, any comments from them, but when we were looking at where there was lack of access, that was the Silver Line, the anticipated route was one of our layers that we were looking at. So like a lot of anticipated routes were things that we had on the map that we were like evaluating alongside with.
So from, I'm taking advantage of you all in that, you got this audience of one here, but I've got all of you. So
Yes, go ahead.
So what we're focusing on is the TOD, the station centers, because we want those to be, they're ideally going to be little town centers. And that has been something that we as a community, as the Mora community, can sit down together and view with a facilitator, a city facilitator, that talks about what do those areas that surround the stations look like. And so we've been asking for that kind of a meeting for several years now. It just hasn't happened. But that's what we need and want, as a neighborhood, as a community. And so to the extent that conversation, that facilitated conversation, can take place and can utilize the place types that you're gravitating towards, that will be helpful to us. And if you think all of this is going to stay, is relevant, is this what, I'm not even sure how to phrase a question. Is there a vote on the 2040 plan? Is this part of what feedback what comes next in the decision-making process for this as it relates to the 2040 plan?
Yeah, so we'll be we're continuing these community conversations until November. And then between November and I believe it's January, I think in January or February is when adoption is expected to occur. So there'll be, this is the current draft one. So we'll be making revisions based on comments and feedback through the end of the year. And then in January or February, it'll be adopted. But your comment about having a facilitated conversation regarding the silver line and these place types, I mean, that's a very valid point. And so we're maybe in November, we can see if that's a time when it can happen after these community conversations have happened. But I know we're using these community conversations as a way to get as much feedback as we can. But I can certainly relay that to our project team about maybe considering like a facilitated conversation around especially around the silver line.
Oh,
Yeah.
I also want to say, I know that after this is adopted, this is going to be citywide, but we are going to begin community planning again. And I don't know, we may use these same geographies or we may break it up a different way. But that I also think that that is definitely going to be a time where the city is going to get involved. I don't know what the schedule is going to be like what's going to happen with that, but that's going to be a time for even more conversation about place types, but it's going to be very, very specific. And that also will be a time where other planning efforts like the silver line and things like that will have meetings, because we'll be working to create like a community plan specific to the area, not as broad as place types.
Yeah, I think that community conversation needs to happen with CATS and the Silver Line project as opposed to the place type. However, you all have to be actually talking to each other to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I think those are great comments.
So at this point, if you can just give me the high level view. So the pink and the blue are what? Pink, blue, give me a refresher as to what the colors are.
Yeah, sure. So the pink is going to be the neighborhood activity center.
Okay.
So the smaller scale center that serves sort of the immediate community.
Okay.
And then the blue is going to be the community activity center. So those are going to be a little bit larger, and they're going to serve a little bit more of the broader community, not the whole region, but the broader community.
Can you give me an example of what a pink versus a blue is?
We can go, I think, so
yeah.
We're trying to do them by bigger block levels. So, well, I guess I didn't realize it's central. Okay, so like this area on Central Avenue where it's those little shops, and I think there's like a Harris Teeter like around, well, okay, that's not a very good example. Sorry. Trying to think of like, I guess, okay, hang on, I'm gonna go back. So this area around Central Avenue, there's like a grocery store, there's like more services, there's pharmacies, different things like that. This, I guess we're considering to be, because it is a larger like share of commercial properties, it's going to be, we're considering it a community activity center. We do have some neighborhood activity center stuff sprinkled in here, but I will also say, like, emphasize again, this is a draft map and people have already made comments, and we're going to have to make some changes and evaluate different things. So we may, even as I'm scrolling, I'm kind of like, why is that way? But I can't think of, I don't know, Maria, can you think of a place that would be a neighborhood center? Yeah.
I was going to say probably the same along Central, or I think when you scrolled up on Monroe on 7th Street closer in.
Okay.
I mean, there's some that is mapped.
Yeah, like all along here, like there's not a grocery store here, but there's like a bunch of businesses, some like restaurants and some services. Like I think there's like a printing shop over here, and the same along Monroe, kind of right here. which some people may make the argument that this should be a community, activity center, but
Yeah.
there's not like a larger anchor store or anchor stores on here, but there's
Mhm.
more, there are facilities or amenities, I guess, that you could get to, but
Mhm.
Is it as basic as larger versus smaller? Okay. So
yeah, I think so.
a big Harris Teeter is more of a regional attraction, and a smaller common market is more.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
that-
guess in terms of like how many people it serves in like the vicinity is probably
Yeah.
another good way.
That's true too.
Mhm.
And regional, the big one, regional activity centers, we're only really, I think we're only considering Uptown and parts of South End, which is the
Yeah.
darker blue, to be the regional. So those really, I mean, I think those are, I don't know if we considered Valentine as one, but, or maybe, I guess we can.
I think like the
as
South
one.
Park, and then I think University area, there's some areas
Yeah.
where it's projected at least.
Yeah. Where it's like very high density.
Yeah.
Is Cotswold one of those?
I think that would be a
Cotswold is
community activity
off,
center.
where is Cotswold? I should know this.
Randolph
It's
and Sharon Amity?
Oh, yeah. Okay. This is Cotswold and Rand. Oh, I think, yeah, right here. I think we have it as a community activity center.
Okay, that makes sense.
and then
Yeah.
surrounded by some neighborhood too.
And so the orange is what?
That one's neighborhood too.
Neighborhood two. Okay.
Yeah,
and-
so higher density residential
Okay. Gotcha.
with maybe a few small services.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
I'm
also
a-
what
sorry, go ahead, Maria.
no, I was gonna say when you're on the map and you click on a place, it'll show you the neighborhood. It'll show you the place type, and then it'll show you you can pull up the full palette from there to see if you want to compare it to something else. And then same thing with the road with the streets map. When you click on one of those roads, it'll tell you what's expected for that road.
Okay,
Just as an
great.
FYI. Mhm.
Can you go back to and scroll along Monroe Road so I can see just generally what, okay, so,
I'm gonna start back here. So I guess this is a 4-lane boulevard, and it kind of tells you different notes, what Maria said, like what's expected of it or what they want to add to it with the streets map turned on.
okay, yeah, now it's all making sense. And so the red is what?
That one's going to be commercial, so that one's along Independence. So since it's more auto oriented, it's showing up as commercial.
The car dealerships, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and like just the larger, I guess if there's any like larger strip malls that are not really pet oriented or smaller scale at the moment.
What's on the corner? Where are we at? Yeah, I'm trying to see.
We're by Independence, and
Idlewild. So I'm looking,
yeah,
so on the corner, okay, so right now Aldi,
Oh, all these.
yeah, is right there on, is
I think right here.
a smaller grocery store, as is all of Meridian Place, okay. And then,
So it looks like, yeah, that one's mapped community activity center.
Mhm. And like this area maybe could probably go back to neighborhood 1. I think it got picked up as
Oh yeah.
community activity center. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. I would have to look at what's
Yeah,
going on right now.
that's all, that's a neighborhood, and I think
Yeah,
you better fix that before those people see it.
I know. We're gonna have to. Yeah, we're gonna have to go back and make some changes. But it's so vast. It's hard to get everything right the first
Of
time.
course, of course. Okay. Boy. I feel for you guys.
Thanks for understanding. Jungles.
Well, we're happy to have you join us at least, and for you to understand at least, and you got some good one-on-one time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a huge undertaking. It's difficult to get people excited to tune in.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you're just, there are going to be pockets of places like Mora is going to want to, talk to you about our area, and everybody else is too. So
Yeah. We're-
apologies in advance, you guys. Sympathy.
No,
in advance.
we expect it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking your time to talk through this with me. And Joanna, you know what I'm thinking about this whole time. You have to unmute. You're nodding, aren't you? You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I was just on Rama today. Wonder how Joanna's doing. Since you're all, none of you will be able to answer this. A rumor says that Monroe Road could be turned back over to the city. That's a no from you, huh?
I haven't heard that. Where have you heard that?
One of our board members said he heard it from some official meeting, but it may not have been. It may have
I mean,
been.
the state is generally happy to release any of their streets to us, so they don't have to maintain them, but that is not one that they've ever entertained. Like, they've always pushed back on that one. It's their only alternate to independence. Not that it's an alternate to independence, but for emergency management, they need it. So I'll keep my ears peeled. I haven't heard that one.
Okay. I'll check with my source and let you know if it sounds official, and let you know.
Okay.
That sure would solve a lot of our problems.
Really?
Yes, in that the city is easier to work with than the state.
I have to agree with that.
By far.
But yes, if you get any more intel, let me know.
Yeah, we know how to get our hands on you guys. The state, we can't, they're out of our grasp.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much, Kathy. And sorry, there's not more participation on your end, but we're going to be having these community conversations from now through November 10th. And I think we have some makeup sessions this weekend that will cover this geography, but in addition to other geographies, if you want to share with anyone else. And we'll also be posting this online later, so people can watch at their own time. Okay. But again, feel free to join go on to the app and make some comments or check out other people's comments. And yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.